with goodness, that's the ideal and that's the best. But in the equation, if you're not hurt with me or angry with me, my Lord, then I'm fine with it. وَإِذَا نَظَرَ الْعَبْدُ إِلَى الْخَلْقِ بِعَيْنِهِ. And when a servant looks with the material eye, the outer eye, the physical eye, the apparent eye, أَفْنَى أَيَّامَهُ فِي مُخَاصَمَتِهِمْ. Then he tires his whole life in exonerating himself and implicating others. But she did this to me, but he did this to me, but he was obnoxious and he was obscene and he was vile and he was arrogant and he used foul language and he was nasty and I will not pardon and I will. أَفْنَى أَيَّامَهُ فِي مُخَاصَمَتِهِمْ. He destroys his entire life in back and coming back counter, one way, this way, and that's it. It's futile, it's not productive, and he gets nowhere. أَلَا تَرَى إِلَى يُوسُف. Don't you marvel at the narrative of Yusuf? حِينَ عَلِمَ مَجْرَى الْقَضَى. When he understood that the happening of his brothers plotting against him, drop him in the well, facilitated his arrival into Egypt, and he looked at it with the deeper eye. عَذَرَ إِخْوَةً. He excused his brothers and he closed the chapter. My sister, my brother, the Quran is teaching us serious psychology. You want to go to a workshop, they're going to give you a glossy magazine, it will cost you an arm and a couple of legs, it will set you back and it will eat into your pocket, and they can tell you nothing more profound than what Allah has told you. This is the message of the Quran. And when you can master, so let me take another verse of the Quran. Sometimes we live in a society where, unfortunately, magic is practiced. And like the professor spoke about Harut, Marut, the two angels that came down, Allah speaks about it in Surah Baqarah in the 2nd chapter of the Quran. And if you look into the backdrop of that verse, the scholars will tell you that many people had confused magic with sorcery, because both in essence have a common thread of being supernatural. So it's fawq al-'ada, it's kharq al-'ada, it's not what the regular, the average, the common person can do. It's something outside the ordinary. So people started confusing one with the other. And then Allah sent the angels to educate people to understand the distinction. That listen, this is what is sorcery and that is what is magic. And of course there are many other proofs, etc. We don't want to make it too academic. We want to get to the point. However, the Quran says that some people abuse the science. They came to alert them that this is how sorcery operates, this is how magic is, and there are different types of magic. One magic is an optical illusion, where you cast a spell on the eyes of the people, and that's the type of magic that the magicians had displayed in the time of the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him. سَحَرُوا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ وَاسْتَرْهَبُوهُمْ وَجَاءُوا بِسِحْرٍ عَظِيمٍ. The Quran says they cast a spell. So when you cast a spell, then the mic looks different, the speaker looks different, the setting looks different. So the podium remains the podium, but I play and I mesmerize your vision. Like I said, it's an optical illusion. It appears to be, as the Quran says, يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ سِحْرِهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. That it appeared to them that these were serpents that were moving around. So some people abuse the science, and what they do, now listen to this, فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. They would learn a science of sorcery through which they would divide a couple. But Allah says, وَمَا هُمْ بِضَرِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. They cannot possibly execute their skill and physically divide a couple until and unless Allah doesn't allow for it to occur. So that's the wicked nature of the science, but it's subject for Allah to allow it to happen. Otherwise Allah can deny it and it will backfire and it will not happen. Likewise, Allah says that there's this conspiracy theories where people have this private council and they sit and they deliberate, and they have a think tank, and they apply their mind. إِنَّمَا النَّجْوَى مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ لِيَحْزُنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَيْسَ بِضَارِّهِمْ شَيْئًا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Surely this private council or this conspiracy is from the devil. And the aim of this is to depress the believer. وَلَيْسَ بِضَارِّهِمْ شَيْئًا. and it cannot possibly depress the believer until Allah wants it to happen. So the point I'm saying is, studying the psychology of the Quran, the vision of Yusuf alayhi salam, merging different verses, that those who do certain things, Allah does not condone it, Allah does not endorse it, but Allah has given people certain powers in this world. It is Darul Ikhtibar. It's a place of examination. It's a place of examination. The teacher, the tutor would probably walk past the student while the invigilation process is active, and he'll see the student writing, and he will realize the answer is wrong, but he's not going to alert him because that's exams. That's precisely what's exams. All of us are going to, hey, think what you write in, hey, that's a mistake. No. Okay. It will be foolish for him to say, no, my teacher smiled, so I think my answer was correct. No, because this is an examination room. You're allowed to do what you want. Allah says in the 19 juz, He could send down a compelling sign that will compel everyone into faith. But He did not opt for that. إِنَّ شَأْنُ نُنَزِّلْ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ آيَةً فَضَلَّتْ أَعْنَاقُهُمْ لَهَا خَاضِعِينَ. If we wanted, we could send down a miracle from the sky, and their necks would just drop and surrender in submission. But وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَآتَيْنَا كُلَّ نَفْسٍ هُدَاهَا. We could have given it, but the choice of Allah has been that man has been given the vehicle of intelligence and the choice. So coming back to the point, what did Sayyidina Yusuf, or what was the thinking and the motivation of Sayyidina Yusuf, is that when you look at things with the outer eye, you will just be stuck in quicksand. You're not moving front, you're not moving back. You just cannot reconcile, and you hold this grudge and you harbor this enmity, and it eats into your health, it erodes your faith, it destroys your life, it depresses you. But when you rise above and you look that, you know what? They plotted evil, Allah could have prevented it, but Allah allowed it to happen. Then in hindsight, in the greater things, this is what my Lord had decreed for me, and I made peace with it. Now, when you have that mindset, see what Sayyidina Yusuf says, وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِّنَ الْبَدْوِ مِن بَعْدِ. And that's why I said my focus on walking in the Quran is speaking on the psychology of the Quran. So, it's just different dimensions, and that's the universal nature of the Quran, that we can apply it in all contexts of our life. So when finally the dream comes to culmination and the vision comes to fruition, and he says that Allah has been so kind to me that Allah has taken me out of the cell and the jail. So he was subjected to incarceration just to quell this whole gossip in society, knowing very well that Sayyidina Yusuf was innocent, knowing very well that he was innocent, right? Even the minister had said that إِنَّكِ كُنْتِ مِنَ الْخَاطِئِينَ, you have erred, it's your mistake. But then because وَقَالَ نِسْوَةً, there was a gossip, so just to drop it and to keep it covered and to put the lid on the whole tale, just drop Sayyidina Yusuf in the jail, and he has to languish there innocently. And unfortunately that continues to plague the world today, where many innocent individuals languish in their cells for no crimes, or without being afforded any legal team to represent them, etc. So when he speaks about the fact that Allah had favored him, now reflect, he said Allah has been so kind, He freed me from the jail. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَلَمْ يَذْكُرْ الْجُبَّ تَكَرُّمًا عَلَى إِخْوَتِهِ كَيْ لَا يَخْجَلُوا. Wow. This is when you have the deeper eye. Welcome to the psychology of Quran, my brother. When he highlighted the favor of Allah upon him, he said, my Lord's been exceptionally kind to me. He's united us, and He's freed me from the cell, and He's brought you from the village life into city. وَقَدْ جَاءَ بِكُم مِّنَ الْبَدْوِ. But He did not highlight the fact that Allah released him from the well. Whereas he first came out of the well, then came to Egypt, then got incarcerated, then got acquitted, and then he made his way onto the throne. And this is mentioned in the tafasir. وَلَمْ يَذْكُرْ الْجُبْ. He did not reference the liberation from the well, كَيْ لَا يَخْجَلُوا, Because the topic of the well was thorny, was contentious. That would inadvertently reference the nasty nature of his siblings who plotted against him. So he didn't want to reference the well in a positive or a negative context because he had moved on. He had moved on. Yes. How often today people kind of forgive you, but then there's a slur, there's a sarcastic remark, there's a gesture, there's a hint, there's an insinuation, and unfortunately it's tainted. It has venom in it, it has poison in it, and it just destroys the whole essence of the get-together. Furthermore, he said that مِن بَعْدِ أَن نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي. This is when you look at things with the deeper happening. He said that Allah has united us after the devil had caused friction amongst us. فيه تلطف بإخوته حيث لم يفعلوا ما فعلوا بأنفسهم وإنما أغراهم الشيطان فمعظم الملامة عليه. Wow. So when he used this reference, I haven't started. Oh, I know time is running out. But this is the beauty of the Quran. Every letter, every word, every formation, there's a science of the Quran which is Rabt, which speaks about the tie and the correlation. And you have dedicated books that expound on the wisdom why Allah has tied this verse with this verse. So what's the tie? What's the synchronization? Because sometimes outwardly, apparently, it looks like there's change in topics. It's from one to another. But there's a fine line that binds the two. By way of example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in the chapter of Luqman, so he speaks about how Luqman told his children that, told his son that worship Allah, monotheism, the doctrine of one God. وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِبَنِهِ يَا بُنَيَّ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ. And remember the time when Luqman, while he was advising his son, he said, don't ascribe partners with Allah. Because surely polytheism, ascribing partners with Allah, is a great act of injustice. And then Allah switches the discussion by saying, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ, and we have ordained man to be kind to his parents. Now apparently outwardly, it doesn't look like it's synchronized. But the scholars who are skilled in Rabt Bain al-Ayat, who specialize in appreciating the tie of the verses, they tell us, wow, that first the father impressed upon the son his obligation to Allah. So the father didn't tell the son, listen to me, obey me, oblige. He said, listen to Allah. So when the father took it upon himself to impress on his son his duty to Allah, Allah impressed on the son to be dutiful to his father. So when you look at the deeper and the inner, then you realize how amazingly it has been perfectly synchronized. So what did Sayyidina Yusuf say? That Allah united us after the devil had disunited us. So what's the hint? That إِنَّهُمْ لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا مَا فَعَلُوا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That my brothers are not to be fully blamed, while they cannot be totally acquitted and totally be declared innocent. But فَمُعْظَمُ الْمَلَامَةِ عَلَى الشَّيْطَانِ, the greater blame rests on the devil, that the devil ignited, instigated, provoked and incited them. So in that way, he was reducing the gravity of the offense of his brothers. Today it's all playing with semantics and how people can wiggle their way. But look at the beauty, look at the teachings of the Quran. So the point I'm saying is that we need to rise above. We need to rise above. And this is the cue we get from the Quran. There is another verse of the Quran. Again, just focusing on the psychology of the Quran. So Allah speaks about the hypocrites. And we know the amount of pain and infliction they had caused to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's untold. It's untold. It's of such a serious extent. And then they would plot against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then when they would meet with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would express tawheed. وَإِذَا لَقُوكُمْ قَالُوا آمَنَّا وَإِذَا خَلَا بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. So when they would come, أَظْهَرُوا كَلِمَةَ التَّوْحِيدِ, in front of the Prophet ﷺ, oh no, we your brothers, we with you, we share with you. You know, in English they say, it is better to tell someone that I openly hate you than to pretend that I love you. It is better to tell someone, I openly despise you than to pretend I love you. Be candid, be honest, be transparent. And that's the teachings of the Quran. We live in today in a very fake world, in a very superficial world. Everything is generic. Do you know what, my brother and sister, the Prophet ﷺ said, before Qiyamah, even respect will become generic. Right? So everything is fake, hollow, shallow, empty, devoid. There's no substance, there's no essence to it. Even respect. وَأُكْرِمَ الرَّجُلُ مَخَافَةَ شَرِّهِ. Wow. The Prophet ﷺ said, and a man will be revered, respected, and saluted because of the fear of his evil. So greet him and cover yourself. لا تتقي من نباح الكلب إلا بكسرة خبز تلقي إليه. Sometimes the only way to appease a barking dog is to drop a piece of bread. It's an Arabic proverb. The only way you're going to keep it at bay is, you know what, feed it. So some people's egos needs to be massaged. No, he's amazing, he's brilliant. So there was this plaque outside a cemetery. Inside here, the cemetery, there are many people who thought the world will not function without them. If any, the world is doing much better. Wow. Indispensable. Inside, there's many people who thought the world will not function without them. If anything, the world is doing much better. Like how does the Quran sketch the image on the death of Pharaoh? كَمْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ وَزُرُوعٍ وَمَقَامٍ كَرِيمٍ وَنَعْمَةٍ كَانُوا فِيهَا فَاكِهِينَ كَذَلِكَ وَأَوْرَثْنَاهَا قَوْمًا آخَرِينَ فما بكت عليهم السماء والأرض وما كانوا منظرين. My word, if you could comprehend this in Arabic, your hearts would burst. Come. So you have come, one is istifham and one is takthir. One is to denote a question and one is to denote abundance. Like how many orchards, how many empires, how many palaces they left behind. Neither did the sky shed a tear, nor did the earth cry, nor were they given grace, respite, or clemency. This is the manner. And Shaykh Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi, wow. مات ملك مصر بعيدا عن عرشه بعيدا عن سلطانه لا طبيب يداويه ولا صديق يواسيه ولا عين تبكيه فما بكت عليهم السماء والأرض وَمَا كَانُوا مُنظَرِينَ. You have to correlate and tie the two and see how amazing it is. So, the munafiqeen, they would give the superficial expression of love. And then when they would be on their own, the Quran says in the fourth juz, عَضُّوا عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَنَامِلَ مِنَ الْغَيْظِ. They will bite their fingertips out of rage for you, fury. So the scholars say, كِنَايَةٌ عَنْ شِدَّةِ الْغَضَبِ وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ ثَمَّ عَضٌ. Right, so عَضُّوا عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَنَامِلِ, they'll bite their fingertips. It's an expression of intense dislike. It doesn't literally mean that they were biting. It doesn't literally mean. إِن تَمْسَسْكُمْ حَسَنَةٌ. What's the psychology of the Quran? That's the message. إِن تَمْسَسْكُمْ حَسَنَةٌ تَسُؤْهُمْ. If you bless with prosperity, it depresses them. وَإِن تُصِبْكُمْ سَيِّئَةٌ يَفْرَحُوا بِهَا. And if you're gripped by adversity, they rejoice. إِن رَأَوْنِي بِخَيْرٍ سَاءَهُمْ فَرْحِي وَإِن رَأَوْنِي بِشَرٍ سَرَّهُمْ نَكِدِي. The poet said, how can I befriend people who get depressed on my prosperity and rejoice over my adversity? And yet the poet said, I had friends around me, and then I said, no, I need to part ways with these friends because they only give in negative energy. فَتَرَكْتُ أَسْفَلَهُمْ لِكَثْرَةِ شَرِّهِ. Because every time I interact, it's bad news, it's depressing news, it's unpleasant. So then I decided to befriend the others, only to realize that the only good they have is they don't give negative energy, but they don't give positive energy either. So probably he doesn't use foul language, but he doesn't make dhikr. He doesn't gossip, but he doesn't say kind words. فَتَرَكْتُ أَسْفَلَهُمْ لِكَثْرَةِ شَرِّهِ وَتَرَكْتُ أَعْلَاهُمْ لِقِلَّةِ خَيْرِهِ. وَتَرَكْتُ أَعْلَاهُمْ لِقِلَّةِ خَيْرِهِ. Then I said, well, you know what? I'm not getting good energy here or there. سَلَامٌ عَلَى الدُّنْيَا إِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ فِيهَا صَدِيقٌ صَدُوقٌ صَادِقُ الْوَعْدِ مُنْصِفًا. If you cannot give me a good, powerful, energetic, matured, intellectual, calculated, meaningful friend, partner, confidant, I'll live as an island, I'll live on my own and move on. But I don't need negative energy. So a person says, I was sitting by Hamad ibn Waqid rahimahullah, and there was a dog in the area sniffing. So we sat down, so I tried to move the animal one side so that we could engage in our gathering. So he said, دَعْهُ هَذَا خَيْرٌ مِنْ جَلِيسِ السُّوء هَذَا لَا يُؤْذِينِ. Leave the animal, leave it, it's sniffing, it's eating. Honestly, this is better than an evil companion. The animal is not harming me in any way. An evil companion only gives negative energy. Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu said, إِنَّ خَيْرَ صَاحِبِكُمْ الَّذِي يَقُولُ تعال نصوم قبل أن نموت وإن شر صاحبكم الذي يقول تعال نأكل ونشرب ونلهو قبل أن نموت. Your best friend is the one who says, hey, let's make haste, time is running out, we need to fast, we need to do this, it's going to be Dhul Hijjah, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, time is running out against us. And your worst friend is, hey, time is running out, we need to party, we need to indulge, we need to club, we need to pub, we need to do all the evils. We're running out, we're going to age, we won't have this time to indulge and live a life of sin and vice. May Allah make us amongst the good companions. So anyway, Allah says that these people, there are those type of people in the world that unfortunately, their prosperity is to see your collapse. That's the sadness, right? You ask yourself, you know, there's this English proverb, and I quote it often. There's a big difference between human being and being human. We might be human beings, but are we being human? No, we're not being human. We're not being human. The life we live, some of us have decided to live a life of luxury. The price of which is, others are deprived of necessity. That's the brutal truth. I was in East Africa doing some social welfare work, and as we were driving down to a place called Masumareni in the deserts of East Africa, it had just rained down, and you know, potholes on the roads. So they say you don't drive on the left side of the road, you drive on what's left of the road. Right? You don't drive on the left, you drive on what's left. But anyway, as we drove, after the rain, kids from the village came out. So I told the driver, halt the car, and I alighted. Trust me, my brother, and believe me, my sister, the kids from the village ran out and they started scooping water from the pothole and started drinking that. Are we human beings? No, I'm not. If I'm pressing on your toes, forgive me, I'm not. Really? Can I reconcile my life of luxury? BBC had the article, the world's richest 1% has the same amount of wealth as the world's remaining 99%. This disparity, this discrepancy, كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ, rotate it so it doesn't become an exclusive monopoly of the elite amongst you. So anyway, I'm saying the world is such today. This is the world. This is how it is. That's the reality of the matter. That there are people out there that just want to see your drop and your fall and your collapse. They don't have the clout and the muscle to see your growth. They cannot contribute to your growth, nor do their eyes have the strength to see your growth. Now, what's the psychology of the Quran? إِن تُصِبْكُمْ حَسَنَةٌ تَسُؤْهُمْ وَإِن تُصِبْكُمْ سَيِّئَةٌ يَفْرَحُوا بِهَا. The psychology of the Quran is وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا لا يضركم كيدهم شيئا وإن تصبروا وتتقوا لا يضركم كيدهم شيئا. قال بعض العلماء إذا أردت أن تكبت عدوك فازدد في نفسك خيرا. هذا تعليم من الله وإرشاد إلى أن يستعان على كيد العدو بالصبر والتقوى. So here you have a family member that is having jealousy, enmity, plotting against you, making remarks, making gossips, making nasty comments, making insinuations on social media, throwing out negative energy. What's the psychology? Go back, go tit for tat, go attack, go for the jugular, go for the legal, get lawyers involved and do the mudslinging? No, no, no. وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا. The psychology of the Quran is increase in your good, and systematically Allah will then destroy them. هذا تعليم من الله وإرشاد إلى أن يستعان على كيد العدو. This is the formula, the secret, the recipe from Allah, that the way to annihilate, to destroy your foe, your enemy, the person plotting against you, is to increase in virtue. And hence in Madarik al-Tanzil, the quotation of some hukama is mentioned, إِذَا أَرَدْتَ أَن تَكْبُتَ عَدُوَّكَ. If you really want to bring your enemy down to his knees, you want him to crumble, you want him to fall, فَازْدَدْ فِي نَفْسِكَ خَيْرًا. Then increase virtue. وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا. If you persevere على عداوتهم أو على تكاليف الدين, just persevere, just endure. وَتَتَّقُوا, and fear Allah في اجتناب المحارم, in abstaining. لا يضركم كيدهم شيئا وكنتم في حفظ الله. Allah will deal with them against you. Allah will say, وَكَفَّ اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْقِتَالِ. Allah will suffice. That's the psychology of the Quran. How often today you see someone throws a nasty post, now you start typing out a nasty post, right? You know, someone said in Urdu language, Zindagi is qadar mukhtasar hai कि मोहब्बत का वक्त नहीं मिलता, न जाने नफरत करने के लोग इतना वक्त कहाँ से निकालते हैं। जिंदगी इस कदर मुख्तसर है कि मोहब्बत करने के लिए वक्त नहीं मिलता, न जाने नफरत करने के लिए लोग इतना वक्त कहाँ से निकालते हैं। Life is so short, I barely get adequate time to wish well, to thank, to congratulate, to express my love to those who I love. I don't know where people find the time to type, to write, to email, to blog, to send a Twitter, to drop a WhatsApp with hate, with dislike, with anger and rage. وذي حسد يغتابني حيث لا يرى مكاني ويثني صالحا حيث أسمع تورعت أن أغتابه من ورائه وما هو إذ يغتابني متورع وذي حسد يغتابني حيث لا يرى مكاني. And the jealous individual, وذي حسد يغتابني, he speaks ill of me حيث لا يرى مكاني, when he doesn't see me or he's not aware of my presence. ويثني صالحا حيث أسمع, and in my presence, he's like, oh, this guy's amazing, he's brilliant, he's phenomenal, he's wow, wow, wow. تورعت أن أغتابه من ورائه. I'm not going to stoop like that. I'm not going to retort the same way. تورعت أن أغتابه من ورائه وما هو إذ يغتابني متورع. Although he chooses to persist with this mean character, this low behavior, this immoral conduct, I'm not going to do the same. So just to rapidly move forward, again, the psychology of the Quran, my brother and my sister, is that when somebody inflicts on you and you're a victim of somebody else's infliction, the answer is not tit for tat, but the answer is to increase in your virtue. Persevere, be silent, and just continue, There's yet an amazing psychology from another verse of the Quran, and this is just wow. And I'm telling you, I'm just selecting on few verses. So we all know the tale about the Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. We all go through grief in our life, right? In English they say, problems never end, they only differ. What cannot be cured must be endured. It's easier said than done when you're going through it and the vessel is hitting one iceberg after the other iceberg, and you just cannot see shore, and you're wondering like where you're heading. It's stormy and the tides are high and the waters are rough and there's gusty winds and there's a cyclone, and you're wondering like, where am I heading with my life financially, health-wise, my kids, my marriage? Everything is just crumbling on me. So the Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, his mom was told, and she was inspired, that when you fear that the intelligence of Pharaoh will apprehend your child, your toddler, فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. My word, this is just too much in its beauty of the Quran. So if I give you a verbatim translation, فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ, when you fear on your child, فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ, then hand your child into the river. ولا تخافي ولا تحزني أي ولا تخافي غرقه ولا تحزني فراقه. And don't fear nor grieve. That's a categoric prohibition of the Quran. Don't fear, don't grieve. The scholars of tafsir, جزاهم الله عنا خير الجزاء, they raise a question. How do we reconcile the prohibition of huzn and khawf, don't fear, don't grieve, when both these conditions are ghair ikhtiyari? You know what I'm saying? So ghair ikhtiyari means non-voluntary. You don't choose to fear, you don't choose to grieve. These are emotions that grip you. Nobody tells you, okay, right, you can cry now. No, tears just flow. They just trickle. It's an emotion that's grip you. No man is too strong for pain. When it hits you, the tears trickle. That's the reality. So how do we reconcile between the injunction of don't fear, don't grieve, and that also being told to a mother? To a mother. Our sisters are here. I can tell you, I've seen my wife, I've seen my mom, I've seen my sister, I've seen the females close to me in my life, the love that they have for children and for near and dear ones, it's just unique, it's just exclusive, it's unparalleled, it's just amazing. I give this analogy very often in my talks. It's like the mom needs to excuse herself and she needs to go out. And so the boy comes back from home and the mom says, listen, tell my son when he comes, I love him, I'm so sorry, I've left his lunch here, and there's his bag, and he can go to madrasa, and mama will see him at night and give him a hug. And when the boy comes home, the dad's like, yeah, your mom left the food here. There's a microwave. You can phone her if you don't find it. It's like, I can convey a message. I cannot whisper her sentiments. I cannot mimic her emotions. She's a mother. She's an embodiment of compassion. Allah has made her unique in every way. When Moses returned from Mount Tur, and then he was enraged and he grabbed the beard of his brother Harun, and Harun intervened. He intervened through motherhood. يَا بَنَ أُمَّ لَا تَأْخُذْ بِلِحْيَتِي وَلَا بِرَأْسِي يَا بَنَ أُمَّ لَا تَأْخُذْ. Oh, the son of my mother. And the scholars say, why didn't he say my brother or my sibling or the son of my dad or my brother, my shaqiq, my blood brother? He said, Ya bana umma, because by virtue of motherhood, he was calling out towards empathy and sympathy. So Allah tells the mother of Musa, don't fear, don't grieve. Now, there's so many fears lurking in our mind, right? Any man as a father is an operation, there's kids, there's family, there's so many things. And today we've become vessels of so much depression. We're walking around, a person stops at a green traffic light and moves at a red traffic light. He's so consumed, the mind is not present. I read an article of a child psychologist, and in that he says, why do children have the stamina to tire everyone and they don't get tired? So here he's playing with his dad, where is he, there's he, where is he, there's he. After a little while he's like, go, your mom's calling you. Then the mom's playing, where is he, there's he, oh, go, your nana's calling you. And then he goes to his granddad, and he tires everyone in the family, but the little boy has strength. Why? And the child psychologist writes, because the child lives in the present moment at optimum level. And the average human is lamenting the past and planning the future. So mentally he's drained and exhausted. He's not there. It's like next month, next year, I'm thinking, yeah, this, that, yesterday. Beta kya kaha? Oh, yeah. I love you, baby, I love you. Wallahi, I say this and I've said this. The smile of a child is a natural antidepressant. You don't need to pop pills. A woman in America was asked who lost a vision, if the Lord had to restore your vision for one moment, what would you love to see? And she said, the smile of a child. But provided when you come from home, the commentary is not more important to you, the predictions of the economists is not more important to you, the match is not more nail-biting for you, you appreciate this God-given boon that comes out to receive you with a free life and a free smile and a natural life and a completely wholesome, just comes and runs. Embrace that child, give that child a full hug, Show that affection. And I swear by Allah, that will put an end to depression. So let's just move swiftly and try and draw it to a close here. So Allah says, don't fear, don't grieve. Now, what's the psychology? How do you reconcile? Because she didn't fear and grieve by choice. And this is the point I want to tell you. And that's what the Quran teaches. They tell us, and this is academic, but I'll simplify. They say, khawf and huzn is غير ikhtiyari huduthan. But it is ikhtiyari baqa'an. Wow. Wow. My word. So khawf, fear, huzn, grief, is non-voluntary by inception, but it is voluntary to sustain and continue. You cannot stop the emotion of fear. That's going to happen. But to allow that to govern you, consume you, overwhelm you, or to nip it and contain it and suppress it, that's within your choice. That's within your right. So something nasty had happened. Now if you're going to make tadhakkur and remind and speak and reminisce and reflect and revive those emotions, then you're going to throw salt on the injury. You're going to exacerbate it. You're going to compound it. So you go, a friend of mine had lost his spouse and kids, and then people insisted that he needs to go for psychology. And then he went for psychology and he went for multiple sessions. And in the 10th session, they told him, you know what, in life, there are some things you need to accept that they happen by the will of the Almighty and it's outside our control. He's like, but that's the elementary aspect of my faith. We start off on that. You telling me that in the 10th session, after digging into my pocket deeply. Like we start off, وَالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ Allah. That's where we start off. That's the beginning. That's the ABC. So, listen to this. Fear and grief can happen and will happen. The inception is out of your control. But to nip it, to suppress it, or to vent it, and allow it to run and control, that's your choice. That's within you. Now what do they tell you in psychology? No, focus on the positives. And where do they get the cue? إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكَ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Focus on the fact Moses went as an infant. We will return him to you. And he will be a prophet. So add vigor and conscience and positive energy to yourself that today he's gone, but Allah will return him. And Allah will make him a prophet. So don't remind yourself on this. So the scholars say Allah has said, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah will not task you beyond your muscle. And Allah has told her not to fear. So how do we reconcile? Is that when fear and grief grips you, then contain it. Don't let it overwhelm you. In psychology, they talk of auto-suggestion. In psychology, if you read of books of psychology, they'll talk of auto-suggestion, where you auto-suggest to your mind. Your mind can play tricks with you. And that is why the Salikin also use the same analogy, and I'm going to try and draw it to a close now, is that the Prophet ﷺ said that the devil comes to you, right? And the devil tells you, Man khalaqa kada, who created the sky? And you're like, Allah. Man khalaqa kada, who created the earth? And you say, Allah. And who created the mountains? And you say, Allah. And then the devil just takes it a notch higher. Man khalaqa rabbak. And who created Allah? That's the hadith. So the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِذَا بَلَغَهُ فَلْيَسْتَعِذْ فَلْيَنْتَهِ فَلْيَسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ وَلْيَنْتَهِ. When that whisper comes into you, then seek refuge in Allah and desist. Now, academically, the scholars of hadith ask the question, وَلْيَنْتَهِ عَنْ أَيِّ شَيْءٍ. Desist from what? If we say it means desist from waswasa, desist from the thought, from the whisper, then that argument will bring to the fore that the whisper is optional. Because you have the choice to say, stop thinking. But we know the thought comes in. You don't choose to think these thoughts. You just sit in and you're getting negative thoughts about Allah. And you say, oh, I'm getting these blasphemous thoughts about Allah. Right? And of course, the Prophet ﷺ said that as long as it is a thought, then that's a sign of Iman. That the devil cannot... ذَاكَ صَرِيحُ الْإِيمَانِ. A companion came and said, I get such nasty thoughts. لَأَنْ أَكُونَ حُمَمًا أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَنْ أَتَكَلَّمْ بِهِ. If I was reduced to coal, then that would be better for me than to articulate it. And he said, that's the sign of Iman. Because if you didn't have faith, the devil will make you say those nasty things. But the fact that he cannot make you say, he preys on your mind. And as long as you don't verbalize or articulate it, then the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَجَاوَزَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي مَا تَوَسْوَسَتْ بِهِ صُدُورُهَا مَا لَمْ تَعْمَلْ بِهِ أَوْ تَتَكَلَّمْ. That Allah has pardoned the thoughts of my ummah, provided they do not execute it or articulate it. So the scholars come back to the same point, and they say, وَلْيَنْتَهِ أي وَلْيَنْتَهِ عَنِ الْإِلْتِفَاتِ. Desist from focusing on the devilish indoctrination. You cannot desist on the thought, because that's the devil is bringing. But stop focusing your energy on it. So stop entertaining. Somebody hurt you, gave you pain or grief. Stop speaking about it. Stop reminiscing. Stop reflecting. That's going to add to your pain and your anguish and your displeasure and your depression and your sadness. No. Focus on the good things. And I conclude on that note with another verse also on the psychology, and I've just selected few and condensed it. In the campaign of Uhud, the noble companions were on a good wicket, things were happening for them, and suddenly there was a change of events, right? From apparent victory, it just started slipping away from them. And it slipped away so swiftly that amongst them they said, Anna hadha. Where's this coming from? So the scholars say, in reconciling with the nobility of the companions, we don't view this anna as i'tiradan, but ta'ajjuban. They were not opposing, but rather they were astonished. Like, we were in grip, we were controlling, we were dominant, it was happening. Sometimes in life, your business is going, your fame is there, your health is there, and suddenly things just start spiraling, and then they just go out, and one after the other, and you think you'll come out, and you go deeper, and one, two, and then you start going back to the drawing board and asking yourself why this has happened, where did this happen, and when did it happen? So they asked the question, Anna hadha, from where did this come? So Allah gave many answers, but the one point that kind of ties up with the psychology here, that Allah says, أَوَلَمَّا أَصَابَتْكُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَدْ أَصَبْتُمْ مِثْلَيْهَا. Wow. Remember when you were gripped by a trial, and then قُلْتُمْ أَنَّا هَذَا, you asked, where did this happen? But then Allah interjected the discussion by saying, قَدْ أَصَبْتُمْ مِثْلَيْهَا. Whereas you had inflicted double of what you had received on your foe. So here is the campaign of Uhud, in which you've lost 70 of your members, and you've lost your grip, your ground, your strength, your muscle, and you were astonished of why this has happened. And Allah is narrating the sequence of events, your astonishment. And then Allah interjects and Allah says, but you had inflicted double of this previously, referencing the campaign of Badr. Now, the scholars say, why did Allah choose to highlight this amidst the discussion of the current crisis? And in Badr, there were 70 that were captive from the opposite camp, and there were 70 whose lives were claimed as well. What was the wisdom? The wisdom and the psychology of the Quran was, in a current moment, you're not on the best of footing, but don't view your apparent defeat in isolation. View it in the larger happenings of things. Yesterday in Badr, you were on the upper foot. So the message of the Quran in psychology is, even at a point where you're low and you're down, view how much Allah has given you thus far. View how much Allah has given you thus far. Don't magnify the challenge and isolate it, but view it in the greater happenings, and you will realize, Inna ma'al usri yusra, Inna ma'al usri yusra. We ask Allah to inspire us with connecting ourselves with the Quran. A young man used to visit the house of Umar ibn Khattab very often. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, Idhab fata'allam kitab Allah. Listen, young man, why don't you go and learn the sciences of the Quran? So he went and he studied the Quran, and then he disappeared. And then Sayyidina Umar said to him, where did you disappear? He said, Ta'allamtu wajadtu fi kitabillah ma aghnani an babik. Wajadtu fi kitabillah ma aghnani an babik. Umar, I got so immersed and engrossed in the sciences of the Quran, honestly, it has given me what I was searching for. Our answer, our solution to psychological problems, emotional, marital, political, and any challenge or any dimension is in the Quran. May Allah give us the ability to connect ourselves to the Quran and to find the cure, for verily in that Allah has kept the cure. وصلى اللهم وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.